Howdy folks, I'm Brian and here's some Reddit. Our first letter is titled, Am I a jerk for asking my emotionally fragile daughter, a 16-year-old female, to take a paternity test to help me out in court? My wife and I are going through a divorce after living separated for almost 4 years. We didn't do this sooner because we both separated our finances and co-parented amicably and didn't want to waste the money. We originally separated after I confronted her on multiple affairs, but I wasn't mad, I was just happy to be done with it. Our daughter was not fazed much by the transition at first because we tried to make it as easy as possible on her. However, just 2 months after I moved out, my wife moved a boyfriend into our house and made our daughter very uncomfortable, so she decided to live with me a majority of the time instead. Wife has since been very irresponsible about bringing men around our daughter. When the pandemic hit, my business boomed while my wife lost her job and had to start working at a grocery store instead. Wife decided to finally file for a divorce and take me for what I was worth, as I was now making way more than her. I'm not gonna lie, things went from mediation to a hostile divorce very quickly when she requested more custody and money than I thought she was entitled to. Ultimately, wife was unwilling to admit to her affairs, and I threatened to get a paternity test for our daughter to prove her infidelity. I had suspicions before about the paternity of my daughter, but I never acted on them because I didn't want to lose her. Well, this was a big mistake because it caused my wife to reveal to our daughter that she was an affair baby. Moreover, she told our daughter that if I found out that she was an affair baby, then I would do unspeakable things to her. Wife told daughter all of this to try to get her out of my home and drive a wedge in our relationship. This has caused my daughter to be distant from me and paranoid and emotionally a wreck for months, and I didn't know why. After talking to my lawyer and getting assurance that my parental rights would not be affected by a paternity test, I decided to ask my daughter to take it. I sat her down and explained it was just to prove her mom's infidelity and that she was still my daughter. Unfortunately, before I could tell her much of anything, she had a full-on panic attack and locked herself into her room. Eventually, her favorite aunt, my sister, came to pick her up, and now she's living with her family. My aunt is the one who informed me of the things my wife said. Daughter and I have been going to counseling, and daughter plans to come to live with me again. Court also ordered wife not to contact our daughter, and my lawyer thinks we will do well. But my sister thinks I'm a jerk for asking my daughter for the test. But the time to prove my wife's infidelity was running out, and I thought my relationship with my daughter was stronger than just genetics. Am I the jerk for asking my emotionally fragile daughter for a paternity test? Daughter and I never took a test, but I was able to prove the infidelity in other ways. Alright, OP. I'm going to have to say that no, you're not the jerk in this situation. I think you didn't realize what was going on behind the scenes. You didn't realize the things that your wife had said to your daughter. And if you had known these things, you probably wouldn't have asked her. Because you didn't really understand how fragile your daughter was at the time. You didn't realize why she was emotionally distant from you. You didn't know why she was, like this. And when you went and asked her for the paternity test, it basically aligned all the things that her mother had been telling her. Telling her that, he's going to get the test and then he's not going to be your father anymore. He's going to do terrible things to you. And, she probably believed that on, some level because her mother was probably very convincing. And she probably felt very insecure in her position. It's good that you and your daughter are in counseling. It's good that you were able to prove this in another way. And it's good that you two are going to have a strong relationship. So no, I'm going to have to say that you're not the jerk in this situation. It was just kind of a series of unfortunate events. Me reading the title, yes, you are obviously. Me reading the whole post, heck no, you are absolutely not the jerk. Lesson learned, read things properly, people. Wow, almost like it's a, clickbait title for this exact reason. It is a clickbait title. This is not a question for Reddit. It is a question for a therapist and the therapist only. Light, you're the jerk for not talking to a professional in a very, very delicate situation. Jumping on the top post here real quick to say that I'm actually in the same situation right now, minus the money, which may or may not come into play in the future. I'm a 24-year-old female not living at home, and I'm having a hard time with the accusations and being in the middle of a divorce. Ultimately, my paternity is the deciding factor of civility between my parents. It is a weird and hard place to be. My dad even told me nothing would change between us, but it doesn't make the feeling of being the child in question any easier. So regardless of what the mother said, which is 100% awful, she probably has her own feelings to work through. It's hard, counseling will help, but you can't really take it back. Maybe a soft everyone's bad here, but only because I know how she could be feeling, and your wife is exponentially more of a jerk than you are. We'll defer it to the experts today. Our next letter is titled, Am I a jerk for kicking my coworker out of my wife's baby shower? I'm a 29-year-old male, and I work in a pretty tight workspace. We have about 9 of us in my department, and it's a pretty even split between men and women. There's only one coworker, Eva, a 20-year-old female, who started working here a few months back. She really is good at her job and seems to get along well with everyone. We get along well as we work on projects together, and are usually in the group of people that are the last to leave on most days. I learned some weeks ago that she was calling herself my work wife. I knew what the term meant, the sentiment wasn't shared, and I've expressed as much. I don't think I've been rude about it. I just let her know that I prefer to keep things a bit more professional. There's no real harm in the term, but for someone who doesn't understand the joke, it just looks and sounds wrong. I'm also a happily married man, and my coworkers, including Eva, know this. I thought I had done a pretty good job of nipping things in the bud after our conversation. I no longer heard the jokes from her, so I didn't think it would be an issue to invite her to my wife's baby shower. My coworkers are all vaccinated, our job helped us get them, and my wife works from home, so there wasn't much of a concern for the sickness that shall not be named. Eva comes in and immediately starts back up with the jokes. You're OP's home wife. Nice to meet you. It's so nice to see who takes care of my hubby when I send him home. My wife is a very sweet and patient person, and she just laughed it off, albeit uncomfortably, and moved on. However, the jokes got worse and wouldn't let up. At one point, Eva was telling people she would be our baby's second mom. My wife's friends and family were annoyed, and my wife looked very uncomfortable. I had pretty much had it by then, and took her aside and told her that the jokes weren't funny, and that she could either apologize to my wife right now for being so inconsiderate and gross, or she could just leave. She chose to leave. Word got around to our coworkers what happened, and while they agreed that she was acting inappropriately, that I should have let her down a little easier, as it was obvious that she liked you. Am I really the jerk for kicking her out? Alright, OP. No, in this situation, I can see where you're coming from here. This would have been a very uncomfortable situation for you and your wife. And it seems like she chose this moment to kind of try to drive a wedge between you and your wife, if I may say so. That would be my guess here. I hate to be cynical. And it just seems like she was doing this on purpose to be a thorn in your side. I think that she probably really liked you, and I don't know, maybe she did this as kind of like a revenge for you telling her not to call you her work husband. I don't know. I mean, people are complicated. Sometimes people do things that are just not rational. Sometimes people have weird thoughts on why they should do something. And it seems in this situation, she just acted very inappropriately and, made things very uncomfortable for everyone involved. So, no, I don't think that you're the jerk in this situation. I think that probably she did like you, and she saw this maybe as like a opportunity to shine, but maybe things just really fell flat for her. I don't know what her underlying motivations here are. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Not the jerk. Send HR an email about this behavior and get it on record. OP, do not take chances here. Get to HR first thing in the morning and tell them everything, starting with the previous jokes and you having asked her not to say that. I hate the excuse of, it's obvious that she likes you. And that entitles her to what exactly? Yeah. Not the jerk, I don't think work wife is cute, especially in that situation. Your wife was probably mortified, but I am sure it helped that you handled the situation and stood up for her. She must be very patient and sweet because I'm not sure I would have been able to keep my mouth shut. You have addressed this with Eva before. I'd borderline say it was harassment at this point. It's not cute, it's not funny, and Eva needs to be a mature adult and act like a professional. Completely inappropriate, but especially at you and your actual wife's baby shower. There's nothing borderline about this harassment. I am an HR professional and this 100% merits a report to the company. In case OP is hesitant to come forward for fear of costing her her job over nothing, it's not and don't be. I expect she would get an official warning on file as it's unlikely to result in her immediate termination unless there are other documented issues or she is in a very strict probationary period. Alright folks, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, consider giving me a like. If you didn't, consider giving me a dislike. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.